strawberry shortcake. I started by showing you the basic North American version with its biscuit-like base, fresh cream, and berries simply assembled. Now it's time for a more composed cake. This is a strawberries and cream sponge cake, definitely British inspired. I start with the sponge cake itself. I've got 6 eggs and they're at room temperature. I'll add to that a cup of sugar. Now I need to mix this on high speed and it takes about 5 minutes to build that structure and also it more than doubles in volume. While that's beating, I'll zest a little lemon and squeeze the juice. Look at that volume you get just from a few eggs and a bit of sugar. Now I've got the lemon juice, a tablespoon of lemon juice and a teaspoon of zest, and I add this while the mixer is going on medium speed. And as a general rule, you can't over-whip whole eggs with sugar. The more you whip them, the finer the bubbles you get, and that makes for such a delicate sponge cake. Now for the dry ingredients, a cup of all-purpose flour and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. That is sifted. You don't need baking powder or baking soda in this recipe. You've got all the volume and lift you need from the whipped eggs. So with the mixer on medium speed, I'll just gradually add the flour and let the mixer do all the work. Absolutely flawless. And before I add this to the pan, there's one more step. I've got 2 tablespoons of melted butter, and I'm just going to add a teaspoon of vanilla to that. Now, pour the butter and vanilla into a larger bowl. Just spoon in about a cup's worth of the batter. I stir this vigorously. Now the butter is more evenly worked into this little bit of batter, and it's easy to fold into the bigger batter. So just a quick stir, and it's ready for the 9-inch springform pan, and it's not greased. I've put a disc of parchment at the bottom, but you actually want the sides without any oil or grease so that the cake can rise up and cling to the sides as it bakes. This is ready for the oven. It's been preheated to 325, and a sponge cake takes about 40 minutes to bake. There we go. The cake springs back when I touch it, so I know it's done. I have to let that one cool completely in its pan, so I have one that's ready to assemble. So what I do is take an offset spatula, insert it right down, and then run it around the inside of the cake pan. That way, when you unlatch it, look at that beautiful sponge cake. This is definitely a step up from that quick little scone-like shortcake. And I like to assemble this version of strawberry shortcake on the plate I intend to serve it on. And now it's time for the fillings, and I don't want the whipped cream to just simply squish out the sides. So what I'm using to start with is half a package of cream cheese. It sets up and makes the sponge cake easier to slice. And add 1/3 of a cup of sugar. Just like the whipped cream that I used in the basic strawberry shortcake, I want to add a touch of vanilla, but this time I'm stepping it up and using a teaspoon of vanilla bean paste. That way I can see the lovely speckles of vanilla bean seeds throughout the whipped cream. And then just to build up the flavor a little bit, because this is more elaborate than that first shortcake, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, and there's half a teaspoon of lemon zest. And so now this makes the mixture quite soft and easy to fold in my 1.5 cups of whipped cream that I've already whipped. And immediately you see the mixture lighten up. You can see it's so light and fluffy. There we go, I'll set that aside for the moment. And I have my fresh strawberries, a full quart that have been hulled and thinly sliced. What I do is I stir in 1/3 of a cup of homemade strawberry jam. And this just pumps up that flavor of the strawberries. So now it's time to put the sponge cake together. I want to slice the sponge cake in half, and the tool I like to use is a bread knife. The serrated edge of a bread knife cuts through the sponge cake so easily with very little crumbs, and it keeps the sponge cake intact. Look at that beautiful sponge cake. So now I spread half of this cream just to the edges. You can feel this is definitely firmer than just using regular whipped cream. And now I'll spread half of the berries covered in that jam. And I like to place a few strawberries right at the edge. That way when I present the cake, you can see them peeking out. Now the top layer of the sponge cake, it's just so light and it just barely rests on top of the strawberries. And now for the second half of that cream cheese whipped cream, I don't spread it right to the edges. I want to see some of the sponge cake. So just towards the center. And then the last of the strawberries piled on top in the center. Look at that. So every bite, just like that original shortcake, you're gonna get cake and cream and fresh berries on there. And the finishing touch, just like the original strawberry shortcake, little dusting of icing sugar. Now, isn't that magnificent? Strawberries and cream sponge cake. So now we've really got the concept down of what it takes to make a good shortcake. You've got